So this is the wrap up. This is the last half of the last day. Bill, can you see if there's anybody hanging outside besides those two people out there? Is that it for right now? Okay. All right, why don't we get started? We had a workshop yesterday called Yellow Brick Road of Recovery that Andrew and Sandy put together that really looked at, that looks like a bottle of vodka. That's what my mind says. That's and this is just banter, Taper Dave. So let me know when you want to start. Are we recording now? Okay. Does anyone know where Linda's black what? Black and white jacket? Okay. Yeah, we'll need Taper Dave's editing skills here. Anyways, yesterday there was a workshop on cross addictions, Yellow Brick Road of Recovery. Andrew and Sandy V put that together. And Matt and I would like to touch base on that from like a point two perspective. It's going to be different. I don't know exactly how, but both Matt and I are very passionate about our recovery. We know what multiple addictions can do to impact progress in recovery in one area when we're unrecovered in another area. We've both been in recovery for a while, and I believe that we can share some experience, strength, and hope, which I hope will help those of you out there who find yourself also cross-addicted, I don't know if that word is accurate, but multiply addicted and challenged. And maybe you're multiply addicted and don't know it yet, and it will be revealed in a inventory as a character defect that you will require a 12-step program to get help with, which is one of the ways that I got into one of my 12-step programs. So I guess I'll just start. That's what I'm already doing. So, all right, so my name is Steve, and I'm an under-earner. Hi. And yes, I am really passionate about my recovery because without it, I won't be here. I would have probably died in 1986. Seriously, I wouldn't have had the guts to kill myself. But and since we're talking about cross addictions, I will talk about my other addictions and then how my evolution arrived to where I'm at now, what my challenges are now. So very briefly, in 1981, I was 21. I got sober. I was ready to check out, frankly, and I had thoroughly taken the 12th step, and I was given sort of an intervention in a fraternity that I was a member of by the vice president and my girlfriend, whose father was 10 years sober in AA at the time, and I was ready to accept it because I was miserable. It wasn't fun. I was the brunt of jokes. I was the guy that couldn't stay on the sidewalk as we were, in Hollywood. I would stumble off into the street. So that was clearly an addiction, and I got sober, and luckily, I stayed sober since then. So I'll have 32 years in that program this December. That was my first. And then the doors opened up for me to be able to see the next level. And it's like that TV show Get Smart, where he's got to go through all these doors until he finally gets to whatever the end is, the telephone booth. That's where I'm headed. And he makes the call to control. So my next door was, I became aware in my sobriety that I was using food and sex to be able to quell my anxiety. And I remember being aware of that and thinking to myself, there will come a day when I will have to reconcile this, because I knew that it was taking a toll, but I wasn't willing to do anything about it. It was inconceivable for me to get into another program. And I had visited one of the food programs a number of times. I had friends that were both in AA and in some of the food programs, and I identified, but I wasn't ready. And so I put both of those two addictions off to the side while I did my sobriety, and I had my life, and maybe 20 years went by. And so finally, maybe without getting so specific, one of my addictions became so poignant in my life. I felt like my life had really shrunk. I'd let go of friends as a result of this other addiction, and I've already mentioned them, but without getting into more detail, let go of friends. I'd gotten divorced. It was actually an amicable divorce, but my life became very small. I had let go of a lot of friends in my marriage because I felt like my wife didn't like my friends, and so when we split, I had already lost contact with a lot of people. Now really all I had was work and these other untreated addictions. I had my sobriety. I don't know how I stayed sober, frankly. There were times when I just stopped hitting those AA meetings and thought therapy is the answer. Not that I love AA, but there's some times when God did for me what I could not do for myself. And I don't even know that I asked God to do it, frankly. But I'm so grateful. I then ended up getting into a program in 2005 for one of those other addictions, and have had success off and on. I'm actually in success on all fronts right now, frankly. As I'm speaking to you now, I feel like I'm completely out of the cave, and I want to address that, what that definition is for me. So that took me all up into the point where my under-earning really started to grow. So I got rid of alcoholism, I got rid of the next addiction, and then my under-earning became very apparent. And I went to DA first, actually, as so many of us do. And I heard the term under-earning, and then I got involved in this program. And for me, this program touched the core of why I acted out in all those other ways. And I really felt like this was the underlying thing for me. The idea, the concept of a cave was wonderful because it encompassed all ways of blocking my connection with my higher power, whether it's food or sex or gambling or buying or whatever. And so my definition of getting out of the cave and living a prosperous life is to examine my life from the point of view of what other addictive behaviors am I engaging in to check out? And then it becomes a judgment call that each one of us have to be the sole judge to decide. What is simply having healthy downtime, and what's really checking out from life, and life limiting, and life minimizing? And we do, each of one of us, have to decide that on our own. And I feel like I've got a pretty good gauge, luckily. I'm very happy with my gauge. And actually, I'm very happy with my willingness to face those things. Because as I've gotten older, and I'm a dad, and my life has become fuller, I'm seeing more and more clearly that my answer to happiness is, as I mentioned before, to have a vibrant, pertinent, practical relationship with God in my life. And I can't have that just in meetings, and I can't have that, it's not enough for me, I should say, to have it just at the time before I go to bed and I'm praying, or when I meditate during the day. I need it to be active because my disease is active all the time. And I have to meet those two together with equal force. Actually, I believe higher power is a greater force than my addiction, otherwise I would have really no hope. So it's been a matter of a real powerful search for relationship with higher power. But what I'd like to focus on here is to have, maybe if you guys can, each one of you, think in your own mind. If you want to write it down, you don't have to share it with anybody else. As you're listening to me, think about what other things in your life. You might be new to UA. This might be a whole new realm for you to consider that you hadn't previously considered, how you're under being. But think about what other things you might need to look at, that you're using to block your connection with God. It is a process for me, so I'm so grateful that I'm alive every day, even if it's a really shitty day, because I'm still in the game. I don't know if there's life after death. I choose to believe in it. I choose to believe in a lot of things. I don't know if it'll happen or if it's true, but it gives me comfort. But I look at it like I'm here now on this earth plane right now, and I've got work to do to evolve as a human being. And I've got a lot of joy that I want to be able to experience that I believe is God's will for me. And I've got lessons to learn that I understand most often, in my case, is learned through pain. I look at pain as an opportunity to find out what is it that I need to change in my life. The same way yesterday we were talking about the time sheets for me as an example to learn what parts of myself are really the character defects that I need to change. The same way an inventory is a way to shine a light on what parts of me don't work. As I work the tools, as I live my life, I can look at my behaviors, I can look at what feelings come up when I work my timesheet. It could be an addiction for me. For example, a form of cave for me can be to, let's say, work my timesheets and habitually get into self-flagellation, which can be disguised in very subtle ways. And the more I engage in that, the more that becomes revealed to me. It's so comfortable to live in a state where I'm wrong, because that means I'm in control. If I'm wrong, if it's my fault, then I'm omnipotent. It's my fault that you're feeling your feelings. It's my fault that I didn't do everything that I planned on my timesheet. It's my fault that I didn't do 4 exact ounces of protein every day for the last 3 months. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's a form of control, and that's a form of addictive behavior for me. And that's a form of cave. So I like to expand my definition of what is the cave for me. And this is just such a wonderful program to be able to do that in. And just to know that, hey, you know, I don't need a 12-step program to deal with every form of cave, but I do need some 12-step programs that are particularly well developed in me as an addictive behavior. And I got involved in one of my other 12-step fellowships as a result of a 4-step here, as a result of looking at character defects, and actually also as a result of an action meeting that I had. And the same way that I said to the vice president of the fraternity when I was 19, you know, you're right, I got a problem with alcohol. It was like, you know, you're right, I need to do something about the way that I'm treating my body. I'm overweight, I'm not giving myself the nutrition that I need, and if I want to be prosperous, I'm going to need energy. I'm going to need clarity of mind, and I know that I've been doing this thing for so long and it doesn't feel, I'm just open to God talking to me through any channel possible. Now, I could be told by somebody who's, you know, out of their mind that you need to do something to get better, but that's why I live in consultation. So I'll take in the impact, I'll take in the information from the universe, from action groups, from PRGs, from family, from friends, even from my mother. Because who knows where God will speak to me from. And I channel it to other people. Thanks. And so where I'm at now is, I'm at a point right now where I'm in these various 12-step fellowships. I'm not aware of any behaviors that I engage in where I check out at all right now. And it feels really raw, but it feels good raw. It's like a good thing. I sort of have a well-developed intuition that I'm putting more and more energy into and more faith into. And I feel like I know what the difference is between having uncomfortable feelings and sitting in my shit. And so, you know, I believe that as I've removed these forms of cave from my life, it gives me traction on developing my relationship with my higher power. I have much more sensitivity in my relationship with my fellow man. Are things right between us, or is there some kind of shit that I need to do a 10-step on? I'm much more there. I'm much more there. And because I'm not numbing it, I don't have the, what's the word? I can't take it that it goes unresolved for very long. I just can't take it. I'd rather face the discomfort of getting clean with you, or getting clean with myself, or making the amends that I don't want to make, because I just want to get through this. There's a lot of analogies that are pretty gross that I'm not going to make to that effect. But anyways, that involve bodily functions. But yeah, I'm not going to get into that. Anyways, I'm so grateful that I'm at this place where I've turned around what used to appear to be work that I would want to avoid, uncomfortable situations that I would not want to face, uncomfortable conversations that I would not want to have, where it would be so much easier to avoid, because I'm finding that I've got the energy, well, to put on something like this with my partner over here, you know, and be present. And I don't know how I had this energy to do this, frankly. I don't know how my partner had this energy either to do this. But obviously something's working, and the bottom line that I'll end with before I can take some questions is that I wouldn't have it any other way. I welcome the challenges, and I love the serenity, I love the clarity, and I love the real palpable feeling that I've got a relationship with my higher power that can actually bring me to tears. If I really get in touch with my desire to want to connect with my higher power, it reminds me, and I'll end with this, of the time, such strong emotion that I could be overwhelmed. When I was 5 years old, my grandparents used to come out from New York, and I had a real strong connection with my grandfather. And when they would leave after their 2 weeks, we'd take them to LAX, and I would just be sobbing at the glass. I would just not want to wait. The airplane would back out. I would just not want to. I have this emotional memory, just this deep, deep sorrow. And now I feel that, but it's more of a sense of joy that I want to connect with my God. It's like the song that George Harrison sung, My Sweet Lord, that's the title. I really want to know you, I really want to see you, I really want to be with you. And that's, I feel that, and I'm very aware of that, and it's just it's made all the difference, frankly. So let me stop there. How much time, is it like 5 minutes left or something? Or
you got 5 to 10.
Okay. We were going to take an hour each, yeah, so I wouldn't mind taking any questions, and if you could come up to the microphone, that would be ideal. Thanks.
You got a solid 10, Steve, for questions.
Okay, oh great, okay.
Hi, Steve.
Hey.
I'm Catherine. Thank you and Bella for putting on an amazing, amazing convention. And I have a question. I'm in 3 programs, and one I've been for 23 years, so I don't do much with it, but the other stuff kind of feeds it. I'm in 2 active programs with sponsors and, you know, all the tools and everything. And I know that I need a 3rd one, but I'm putting it on hold, and I'm wondering, I'm coming up against situations regarding it, and how do you juggle all those, and when is too much? And I know you do what's kicking your butt the worst, right? You know, you go for that. And so I got 2 of those right now, this one and another one, and but it's really obvious that I need a 3rd one. I was thinking that I would just read the literature and maybe go to a couple meetings and kind of work at it, not work it, until I can get through this other stuff. I don't know. What's your thought on that?
I've actually taken that approach. There's another 12-step program that I've read the literature on, and it's helped my recovery in this UA immensely.
Okay.
I would look at that experience that you're in, that I've also been in, as a life experience, a spiritual experience to help you deal with how are you actually, and this is wonderful too, because we're in this program where time consciousness and time mindfulness is one of the major tools.
Yeah.
How valuable is your time, that you don't
Yeah,
want to waste
yeah.
it by, if you want to use it to get as much recovery as you can. So then the idea of sitting down and watching 6 hours of Ice Road Trucker versus getting recovery in this 3rd program that you may need. It's like, you know, it's like I would feed that thirst. I would acknowledge that thirst for recovery, and then also be mindful of your earning, being able to be, and also other areas of prosperity. It's their motivations. I believe that these desires or these addictive behaviors that cause this pain are all God-given.
Yeah.
You know, we have free will, and we probably feed some more than others, and that's the way things manifest. But all of it's an opportunity. So there's no easy answer. You just have to it's also another experience to follow your intuition. Let me check in with myself. Where should I be spending my time right now? My recovery time. If I think, do I want to go to an ACA meeting or a UA meeting or an AA meeting or a CA HOW meeting, I ask myself, where will my soul be most fed right now? What do I feel like I need? So sometimes that's the question that I ask myself. Or maybe I just need downtime. You know, so yeah. It's like, where will my soul? What do I need right now the most?
Okay, I'll think of that. Thanks.
Thanks.
Hi there.
Hey,
Bill. Could you talk a little more about medicating the anxiety? Where does the anxiety go if you don't medicate it? How do you address it in a sustainable way? Right.
That's a great question. So, in my case, I feel like I have a highly addictive personality. It's very deep, and therefore I know that what I'm doing is I'm covering up a lot of deeply rooted anxiety. And so deeply rooted anxiety for me comes from long ago trauma. You know, I'm not saying, I'm not going to get into the degree of trauma, but, and so therefore for me it was all of 32 years. So it took quite a long time for me to get where I am now. And I've only been in this space where I feel like I'm fully out of the cave into the sunshine for a few months. So where does the anxiety go? As I keep coming back into every 12-step program that I belong in, and I get more recovery. Yesterday I was sharing about the boulder that I'm going to keep that pickaxe at, and I'm going to hit it 99 times, and maybe the 100th, maybe the 110th, it'll shatter. I need to do due diligence to keep on picking away at it. Stay in faith. And for me, to answer your question more directly, I found that as my relationship with my higher power has gotten really tight, character defects seem to not manifest. I don't have to even take contrary action. The anxiety doesn't even manifest. I don't have to manage it. But it's a huge, huge move to go from the darkness to the light. It's inches across that line, right? Just a tiny, but it's a huge step. Once you're there, it's so much easier. And I've taken that step many, many times. All right, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I'm going to step into the sunlight. And then I kind of freak out because I'm not ready yet, and I go back. That's part of my process. But I don't give up. I keep trying. I keep coming back. I'm willing to make mistakes. I let go of perfectionism.
Ugh.
Key. And I have my anxiety. I have my anxiety until I don't have it anymore. But it's possible to not have it anymore to a huge extent.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Steve.
Hey.
I was wondering,
Bella.
I was going to ask you if you have a life, but I've been working with you for the last 10 months, so I kind of know that it is what it is. But with all these programs, how do you get a life outside of it? Or is it all just continuous 12 steps, wall to wall?
No, it's not continuous 12 steps. It's a great question. Sometimes it is, though. Sometimes it's just 12 step because that's what I need. But it's not always. And the friends that I have that are not in 12 step, they just know, sometimes I'm there and sometimes I'm not. I'm doing what I have to do to take care of myself. I might make a bad decision and be in just 12 step recovery exclusively for too long. It might be an imbalance, but that's the way that it is. It's like riding a surfboard and you're never perfectly stable. You go right past that perfectly flat point and exceed it, and then you go back and it's always being in motion, back and forth and back and forth. It's a pendulum that's swinging. So, and when I get too far out, I make the correction, and I get better at it. Every time I exceed it and I stay too far out of balance, I get more sensitive to knowing when I'm starting to move in that direction, and I've gotten better. Like I said, it hasn't been that long for me, but I've got this sense that I'm really in a good place right now, even when I'm not feeling well. And the balance comes from my awareness with time also. I've cultivated outside friendships, and I've recently got involved in a relationship, as you know, and so I'm welcoming that. That's part of my prosperity in this program. That's where I love this program. This program is like a hub for me that helps me see all of those things. So I don't know, there's really no easy answer, but I have to be able to cultivate those outside interests, action meetings, that kind of thing, and then really manage my time.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Hi. Thank you. Well, it was really wonderful to hear your experience of this, and I'm inspired, so I appreciate that.
Thanks.
I came in a little bit late, so I may have missed this part, but when you talked about having an active relationship with your higher power because your disease is active, and that like going to meetings is not enough, and is not enough, like what is that for you, that active thing?
Active thing as far as my relationship with my higher power? It evolved. I'll try to be quick with this. I came to a point, I think, in 2010 where I really did realize, as I said, that I can't just have a relationship with my higher power. I can't just rely on being in meetings and feeling connected. And I can't just wait on when I'm in meditation to be connected. I realized I needed an active dialogue. And I would read inspirational literature, different ways to have a relationship with God. I've got some really great books on that. But a lot of it was just talking to God throughout the day. And then also 12-step program is so amenable to that kind of evolutionary dialogue in my head, doing a 10-step, but I needed to be able to cultivate that. The analogy is you've got a really close friend. You've got your best friend, maybe you met him in college, and then you lose touch. As you lose touch, it becomes harder and harder to pick up the phone. And you maybe pick up the phone if you need to borrow money, or if there's some emergency, you've got to contact them. I don't want that kind of relationship with my higher power. And so what I'll do is at every opportunity, as I remember, I'll get into dialogue, literally. And it's become, sometimes I feel schizophrenic, but I don't think I am. It's just a, I'm hoping you're out there. It's just really investing in that and making it so familiar that I'll pick up the phone, call, right there, I'm right there. It's just practice.
It's awesome. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Okay, one more?
It's interesting. In all my program work of 14 years, I've heard myself be diagnosed by both recovery people and by therapists, which I ended after I got in recovery, of adult attention deficit disorder. And I haven't heard it once here. And it's such a pop psychology with all of our children, they've either got autism or ADHD or da-da-da-da. And so is your experience with this thing of the questions that are happening today that around these diagnoses that are so readily labeled adults and children, and what recovery does for those?
So I'm not sure I understand the question.
Do you have any experience that you would relate to, I would have been diagnosed as if and recovery.
Oh, maybe,
as-
yeah. So so here's my experience with that. I know that if I, with my action partner, choose to do certain actions that I really am scared to do, that the time will come in the day when I've scheduled to do those things. And like, for example, I need to create an ad for my business. And so what am I going to do? I'm not going to recreate the wheel. I'm going to go on Google and I'm going to look up other similar businesses. I'm going to see what kind of verbiage they use, what kind of pictures, what kind of layout, all that kind of stuff. Well, I'll go online. Oh, I know. I shared about looking into teaching at UCLA. So I thought, and I need to create a syllabus. So I looked on other UCLA extension teachers' syllabuses to find out what they do. And what I did was, I want to find out who this person is and what's their background. Now I'm away from looking at the syllabus. And then I start comparing and despairing what their experience is. And I find that happens again and again. As I start to approach something where I'm insecure about it, I'll start to very, very subtly go off. Now, maybe that could be diagnosed as ADHD or whatever that is, but yeah. It's just a way for me to avoid the painful this. I don't want to grab this, but that's what I'm going to have to do. And the only way to deal with that, the only way to deal with my fear is to go through it. I can't go around it, over it, under it. I can't wait for it to evaporate. It's not going to. So, okay. So, thank you for that, by the way. Great questions. And now I'm going to have Matt come on up and share his experience, strength, and hope on that.
Hi, my name is Matt, and I'm a grateful, recovering under-earner. I haven't had a bad day in 3.5 years and counting. And in the course of that 3.5 years, I had to have a dog killed. My car was stolen. My wife and I moved into a house, burnt down. We lived in a one-room, converted garage. My grandmother died. Was bit by a dog. Almost died from the infection. And I haven't had a bad day. And the reason for that is because I came to understand that the primary purpose of every relationship for me is spiritual development, mine. Whether or not the other person's in on that game, I can't say. But what UA did for me is it helped me coalesce all of those awarenesses that I got in the other programs. I wasn't ready for UA until I was ready for UA. And what UA did for me is, as it's talked about in the big book, I no longer became a man who apologized for believing in his God. I no longer became a man who would bow to another man before he would bow to his own God. I became a man of principle and integrity, and I make amends. I amend my behavior. I keep track of what I do as best I can. I check my motives on a pretty regular basis, but I don't apologize a whole lot anymore. And that's not because I don't need to. It's not because people don't deserve the apology, rather. It's just because I'm just a lot less of a jerk, really, is what it comes down to, with the capacity at any given day to be a jerk. So for me, one thing I came to understand, so the backstory is this. I was born, when my mom was pregnant with me, she had an eating disorder. She was bulimic, and she and my father were doing some missionary work in Guam and out in the Philippines. So when she was pregnant with me, she would she also really needed the attention of anyone, but mostly men. And she would bury a hole in the sand and lie belly down in the sand so that when men would walk by, they wouldn't think that she was pregnant. She went to a doctor to help her with the anxiety that she felt, which was really triggered by her bulimia and vice versa. And the doctor prescribed Valium to her. So she was a Valium addict while I was in the womb. So the scientific fact is that I was born a drug addict. What's fascinating to me about my UA recovery is that if you ask me, which apparently you did by asking me to speak, if you ask me, I came out of the womb an under-earner. I came out of the womb, I was literally in a cave before I came out of the womb. And then I came out of the womb in the cave of my mind, the fog of drug addiction, and then the chaos, the sheer chaos that was my life growing up. You know, watching severe abuse, watching my mother you know, have sex with men for money while I'd be standing there in the hotel room and so on and so forth, and going to my father and him denying that it ever happened while he's studying, he's in seminary school. So my relationship with God, men, women, and myself was shot. And that's how I came out of the gate. It's also from that place that I can say, because of the UA recovery that I've been given, that I'm clear that even at that time I had everything that I needed. I don't choose to be a victim anymore. Not on a regular basis. But I still must have had everything that I needed because I got to this point. So, you know, I went on my merry way, and in spite of myself, or because of whatever gifts I was given, I accomplished some things, and I developed this, you know, basic split personality and a lot of secrets and things like that. I did a lot of things that needed to be buried because I couldn't handle them. And my first introduction, and I want to contextualize this. You know, it's so important for me when, even though I'd come in from other programs in UA, when I came into UA, I needed to hear about UA. I want to make this clear for me. I needed to hear about UA. I needed to hear about under-earning and the recovery from under-earning and what the promise of UA recovery was about. So I spoke the language of the other programs, but I'm just sharing about this because it's a topic that's come up, and I think it's been handled really well by the presenters before me. It's really important for me when I'm on a UA meeting that I talk about UA, because there might be somebody who is like me, who is close to death when they came into this program, that may get sidetracked by DA. Maybe I need to get solvent. You know, maybe I need to go to Al-Anon. I'm a firm believer, and I got to look at what's killing me first. And I'm a firm believer in being a safe place for people to turn to, and if they need to recovery, it's my 12-step responsibility to offer them recovery as best I can. But it was really helpful for me when I came in to hear people say, this is my UA recovery. So having said that, my first 4-step program was Al-Anon. You know, it's what happens. And I got to Al-Anon because I turned to a buddy of mine when I first moved back to LA, and I said, you know, the problem is that every woman in my life is crazy, and she doesn't know that she's crazy. So what I need, it gets better. So what I need is I need a woman who's crazy, who knows she's crazy. And he said, meet me at the Saturday morning 10 a.m. Yucca and Gower meeting. And I didn't know what that was. I thought, that's a strange time to hit on women, but all right, I'll go for it. So I show up, and it's an Al-Anon meeting full of women who are crazy, who know they're crazy. And I met a man who would later become my sponsor in AA. But when I met him early on, in the first 5 minutes I was in that meeting, I heard people speaking, and I wept. I wept with identification. And I met a man who later became my AA sponsor, and he just looked at me. And he said, you know, this, I told him this thing about, you know, I came here to meet crazy women who knew they were crazy. And he said, you have sold yourself so short. You've traded $1 for a penny. And the other thing he said to me is, everything you need is within you. And then he walked away, like, you know. And then, you know, shortly after, you know, I came back and moved back to California from New York, you know, where I'd been 16 years, and you can get a taxi and you can get on the subway and you can be drunk long and late and do all kinds of things in the dark corners of the city. And, you know, shortly after that Al-Anon meeting, I got busted for a DUI, and I went back to an Al-Anon meeting, and they said, okay, I think what you ought to do, somebody said, I just got out of jail. And somebody said in Al-Anon, why don't you try a 30 and 30 in AA? Which I'm sure was doing her and all of the Al-Anon meeting a big favor. So I did that. I did that because I was desperate, and I didn't know that I was desperate, and I didn't know what else to do, and I started going to that program. So what I'm getting at is I addressed that issue. And then my AA sponsor kept saying, you know, you really sound like you got debting issues. And I'd say, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm looking at my monthly bank statement, and it has $700 in bounced check fees for that month, because my girlfriend at the time, who I was living with, who everybody told me don't move in with, had $1,000, $700 to $1,000 a month of a caffeine habit, right? So neither of us are paying attention to who's paying for what, and then there's the bill, and I'll never forget sitting there thinking I might actually break this restaurant window, or break her, or just go out and kill myself. So my deading clearly was affecting my serenity. So finally, I left that relationship, got into DA, started doing that. And then, as I mentioned before, my now wife had said to me that, she'd come in after I'd been in recovery, I guess at that point about 3.5, a little more than almost 4 years. And she said, I was just at this Share a Day in LA, and, I heard this guy speak, and you got it, it just was great. And so she shows me the symptoms, and as I've shared, in my sexist, typically sexist and arrogant way, not so typical anymore, I said, oh, that's good, honey. That's good. I got it. Thank you. I don't need that. And I looked at the symptoms, and I hit about 4 out of 12 of them. And then I looked at the symptoms again sometime later when my AA sponsor, who's also working with me in DA, said, you got to check these symptoms out. Okay, I'll look at them. And I hit about 8 out of 12. And then weeks went by again. He said, I really think you ought to look at these UA symptoms. And I looked at it again. I hit 10.5 out of 12. So I knew enough to know that I was cooked. It was a question of whether or not I wanted to address it. But I'm very clear for myself that I could not have heard the message of UA recovery if I hadn't gotten sober in those other programs. I wouldn't have been able to. I wouldn't give a rat's ass about time if I'm drinking. I wouldn't. Why would I? I would use vagueness to treat more vagueness. What I discovered that was really profound in UA that brought me back to all the other programs is this. In my step work, that which I resent, I cannot fully become. That which I resent, I cannot fully become. So if this is about me getting back into right relationship with God, myself, and my fellow human beings, if in fact there is a power deeper and greater than me that might be called the sunlight of the Spirit, and if in fact that power is a collective power, anyone, anything, or any place that I resent is blocking me from that power. So what I found in doing this step work in UA, from the 4th especially up through the 9th, I was rocked in the first step when I realized, God, I'm powerless over this too. In AA it can be as simple as just don't drink no matter what, but I almost felt like I was being told in UA, don't think no matter what. And I was screwed, right? And I remember doing my UA first step, couldn't write. I'd had an accident where they thought I might lose my right hand, and I had a sponsor, and he wanted me to do the work, and so I found an app on the phone, and I would dictate my step 1 writing into the phone and then email it to him, and I would intermittently sit in my closet crying, thinking about killing myself again because I had hit a new bottom. So I found in the 4th through the 9th step that, I had to basically grow up. I had to choose to grow up to another level. But this one was trickier because this wasn't just about, okay, I'm going to get sober. This was about prosperity, which I had no context for. I didn't know what that meant. And as I began to understand it from a spiritual perspective, prosperity was really, I just love a lot of what's been described this weekend and how well these things have been simplified. But basically, I was not living to the maximum capacity of my God-given abilities. Period. I wasn't choosing to connect to my God and put my God in front of everything on a regular basis. And that was still self-will. It was still driven by fear. It was still creating chaos and damage to people. So when I looked at prosperity and I got further into the steps and I started to see my life change, because I came into the program making $12 an hour working at a grocery store with a magna cum laude from NYU. And I come into the program and I'm close to death and I start doing the steps and things change. And all of a sudden, a dream job that I'd been doing on the side becomes a regular gig. And all of a sudden, the house that my wife and I lost, the landlord said, stay in the back house and we're not going to charge you rent. $22,000 we saved staying in that back house. And my wife and I got married 4 months ago in Malibu with 140 people, and we paid for that thing cash, right? So that's the kind of stuff that has happened to me in the course of this program. Because prosperity and my connection and my willingness to be in right relationship means I have to be willing to accept whatever good is coming my way. And as I saw things start to unfold, I realized, oh, the real problem here is not the lack of prosperity that's available to me. The only problem is my thinking. That's the only problem. And my choice, because the steps give me a conscious power of choice back, my choice to not work towards or be available to that prosperity, that experience of connectedness with my God, my choice to do that is totally self-will. And I have that choice. And when I hear, am I willing to go in any lengths, it's easy to say, yeah, I'm willing to go at any lengths. I'll get up, I'll be on the 5:30 meeting, I'll do step work, blah, blah, blah. But there's a couple other ends of that I know now. Am I willing to go to any lengths means, am I willing to clean that up so that I can have this? Am I willing to do this work in this program so that I can stay here? Am I willing to make amends to that person from that program so that I can be right with my God. And all of this stuff is interconnected for me. It can't not be. And a lot of times the question comes up for people, you know, who am I? Who am I to be able to receive these gifts? I'm aware of the fact that in UA recovery, particularly around Los Angeles, my recovery on the outside has been of the sometimes quicker variety, right? Sometimes slowly, sometimes quickly. I see that things have turned around for me radically in a short amount of time. And for whatever reason, I came in, I heard what was being said, and I felt like I found the motherlode of my dis-ease. This inherent belief right out of the womb that I am separate from my God. And if that was true, then that means I'm not going to have enough. Somebody else has more than I do. It's up to me to go get it. And the things that I'm going to do to get it, I'm not going to feel good about. So then I'm just going to perpetuate those addictions. And all of my addictions, I came to realize in UA, all those other addictions that I first got treatment for, those were addictions that were coping mechanisms that I was using to deal with the pain of a life that was unlived. That's true for me. That's how much I understand it to this point. One of the gifts about this whole week for me is that somebody asked me, you know, what's your takeaway? I was wrong about a lot of things. The fun thing that I was wrong about was what everybody looked like, because I pretty much only talked to everybody on the phone, so that's been like a guessing game, you know, for me. I thought, yeah, I won't go into it. But so I was wrong about a lot of things, but my recoveries, you know, my commitment is to being in right relationship with my God. I take my third step. I turn my life and my will over to the care of God as I understand God. I don't turn my life and my will over to the care of my sponsor, my meeting, my wife. I don't do that. Not that they're not capable or have more experience or more recovery, but this is about, in the end, my relationship with my God, which happens through my relationship with my sponsor, my wife, my meetings, and other people. I can't separate them. That's part of me being grown up, is that they're all connected. So one of the gifts of the payoff for me in my recovery here is I've come to understand that everything is about relationship. All of my success in business is about relationship. My relationship to money is about relationship. As I've said over and over again, I do not work on my relationship with blank by working on my relationship with blank. I work on my relationship with blank by working on my relationship with God. That's my spiritual equation, and anything I can think of I plug into, it still comes out that way. So personally, having finished the 12 steps and being in a position where I can sponsor now, I actually have to go back to the other programs because I gotta pay attention to that stuff. I got some more fine tuning to do. I have some more step work to do. I have some more surrendering to do. But this program not only gives me that consciousness, it asks of me, how far are you willing to go in your relationship with God? My life is so radical right now, and since we're in LA, it is rad, it's true, but it's radical. And what's gifted to me in this program is that I'm willing to give all of it up if it were my God's will. My wife's not too hip when she hears me say that, but she knows, you know, that's why she married me. That's what the program gave me. I also know from this, in particular, the consciousness that's come out of this program, that there is something about myself, and I would offer that there's something about yourself or your God or your consciousness that you don't know, the knowing of which could change your life for the better. And if it is true that I'm never not connected, really, for me, if it's true that I'm never not connected, I can't actually disconnect from my God, then I recognize that it's in my thinking. What I get is the freedom of choice. I can connect or not connect. If it's true that we're never not connected, then it's not only my responsibility, but it's really my gift and my opportunity to see who and how can I connect with people through my day, every day, every day, every day, one day at a time. So when I stopped resenting, I did that inventory and I stopped resenting, and I thought, good Lord, how many more inventories do I got to do? Because I already did them in other programs. I started looking at my inventory and my 4th step and my 9th step amends in UA through the context of my under-earning, And I saw how pervasive the thinking was. And there had been so many great workshops. And one of the things that was brought up was, resenting the rich. Well, I happen to be a man who's now earning in the six figures. And I used to resent that man. That which I resent, I cannot fully become. So the purpose, ultimately, if I see all of this as connected, the purpose is really pretty simple. The purpose, if you look to the person who is on your left, and you look to the person who is on your right, it's my belief that that's your purpose. And that's it. And anything else is just horseshit that I got going on in my own mind, which is just fear-based. And it says something for me about an under-earner, that I could come into this program and I could hear people say, you have the opportunity for sustainable prosperity. You can experience good and right God in your life every day, all day. You have that opportunity. And I, as an under-earner, say, let me think about that. Let me get back to you on that. I'll see you in a year, So at the end of the day, it's just about my fear. Why? Because I think, God's going to take me from me. I don't know. All I know is that the amount of spiritual discipline that I've been given in this program, and the guidance and the awareness that I'm important, but I'm not that important, and the depth of study that I've been driven to, and the big book and the 12 and 12, that has moved me into a place where I love my recovery. I continue to have to balance my recovery. I have a really good relationship with my life. And I'm able to remain teachable. So that gives me a pretty good shot. And that's it. Thank you. So we have about 10 minutes for questions, if anyone has a question or a comment.
Hi there, Matt.
Hi, Bella.
So is this the one program to rule them all, in the sense of...
No.
Okay, so that answers that. Given that you have these other programs, do you ever feel stretched too thin, a bit fragmented? I mean, the Matt that I know now, or think I know, would he also be the Matt that I would encounter if I was in a different program that you're in? Yeah,
I'm a pretty consistent guy. But the truth is that that it's very easy to get fragmented. We talk a lot about time, and Steve mentioned it. A lot of people have asked about it. And I'm leaving this conference, and I have, under the suggestion of somebody else that I respect in this program, I have taken the responsibility of vice chair, for example. So I've added something in, so I got to take something out. And if I'm not willing to take that out, then I shouldn't have added that thing in. You know what I mean? And if that thing that came in was God-given, then I better be willing to take my claws off the thing that's got to come out. So I have to, when I leave here this week, I'm going to call up some people, nobody in this room, but I'm going to call up people that I told I was going to sponsor and say, I don't have the time. It's because of my new responsibility. So that fragmenting is really easy to do. And my disease, when I had no recovery, my disease was my dis-ease. But now that I have recovery, my dis-ease will use my recovery against me, and that's exactly a place that it would do it.
Right, and thank you very much. Following on from that, I related to the conviction with which you spoke about your priorities and what you deal with first before you touch everything else. What has been the reaction of those around you, and even you yourself, to these sort of boundaries that you have now, where not just your time, but the sense of, even with your lady, this is where we're at, this is what it's about. That sometimes, do you ever experience a pushback to that? And if so, how do you handle it?
Yeah, thank you. I make much better choices in who I engage with now, who I go into business with. I don't go after the money. I go after what's going to be the best use of my time and my spiritual growth. I don't have the kind of knucklehead friends that I used to have. So generally speaking, people uphold and support the path that I'm on, But, you know, I haven't been home since Tuesday. My wife's got 13 dogs at home that she's taking care of for the business. She's tired. And I know God, me, and everyone else, and that everyone else is a real close second, and my wife is the top of that everyone else list. So I know when I go home that whatever recovery I've been able to soak in here, I got to make time for her. She's got to go to the spa. I'm going to bring her dinner tonight. Like, I have to make that time because this is about balance, social, sexual security, balancing the instincts. And for me, I wake up every day defiant. I wake up every day with confusion, every day. And what happens for me is every day, as it's talked about, page 86 through 88 in the big book, I have to do the best I can to live intuitively because that's where I'm going to find my balance, not in this supercomputer, you know.
Could you say that again? Connect with every day.
Thank you.
Every day I have to wake up and work towards intuitive thought. Yeah, so because that's where I found balance, not here.
Hi, Matt. Sonia.
Hi, Sonia.
Great share. I've never heard all of it. Two questions. First of all, how are you able to, like for me coming in UA, I feel like I have to be a mean bitch in order to take care of myself. And how do you, so I saw you throughout this week, you emanate this gentleness while you're setting a boundary. Like, do you work on that? Is that just natural?
I don't know if it's natural or not. I know that is the book talks about, you know, we intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. And I've been in a week full of situations which used to baffle me. And I've watched, because I make my primary commitment to my God, I've watched myself be able to handle stuff over and over again. So a lot of times there's you, there's the God that I've put between me and you, there's the way I'm acting, and then there's me standing back here saying, wow, you're not handling that too bad. A lot of times that's the experience, you know, the detachment and then there's, whoa, you didn't handle that well at all. You better go check that, you know.
I see.
Yeah, but there's a mindfulness that this program has given me. It coalesced the other programs.
And the other question is, you said something about the tears, and I'm all into expressing my tears. And how do you do that work without no more victim? I heard you say no more victim.
Yeah.
So where do you go to do those tears without feeling like a victim?
Yeah,
do you go to your sponsor, or do you go to a meeting?
No, I can really go between myself and myself. I have to be careful not to isolate, but I have to make room for how I feel because prosperity is an experience. I love a song because it reminds me of the time when I felt a certain way. I love this weekend not because I'm going to remember the 47 million details, but because I felt a certain way. So prosperity is an experience, and experience is, you know, it's got an emotional language. So if I don't make room for that, I'm not only, you know, cutting off part of my life, I'm not making room for all of the experience of the prosperity. So I have to make room for that. And the recovery and the steps allow me to tolerate a life that is unresolved.
So if you need to cry at a meeting when you're sharing, you would cry at a meeting?
I did it yesterday. Yeah, I cry regularly. If you're a man and you haven't cried yet, you ought to get on board.
So
know?
that's not victim if you're crying.
No, victim is it's somebody's fault that I'm crying.
And then just to clarify, you said something here where you can connect with right God all the time, all day long. There is something about my God or my consciousness that I know. We are never not connected to my God. I didn't get all that.
I was saying it's my understanding that I can't actually be disconnected from my God. I can think I am and experience that I am, but I don't really believe that I had a spiritual awakening. I didn't do spiritual shopping. I woke up and I realized, oh, it's all there. And it always was all there.
Never went shopping. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt.
Hi, Mindy.
You say you get right with your God. How do you do that?
Well, what's great about this program and the big book and the 12 and 12 and all of the great things that have been suggested is it's really simple. I complicate it. Prayer, meditation, attend a meeting, talk to somebody, take somebody's phone call. You know, if I've done the step work, if haven't done the step work, start doing the step work. If I've done the step work, nightly inventory. You know, and the net result is on a percentage chart, the percentage that I'm connected to my God is probably really, really small. but it's bigger than it's ever been. And the big book tells me God could and would if God were sought. So that's all. I'm just making a sincere effort, saying, hey, I want to connect, and then my God saying, cool, you're connected. Thank you. Yeah, I think I got about a minute left here.
Thank you so much, Matt. I loved hearing your whole story. And the part about going to the place where you put your God first, right? And when you were talking about your wife and how she says, oh, that kind of tweaks her out, right? And I would love to have the level of clean and sober that you have, right? And I know that I need to get to that place of putting my God before all else, you know, seek first the kingdom, right? And all else will be given, or something like that, right? And how did you, like, was there a time where you had wrestled with that? Or did you just like go, you know what? I have to just get there and that's it.
No, I wrestled with that the first 3-something years, 2.5 years of my recovery. And then I left the woman that I was referring to earlier, and had a very dark, quiet, monastic period where I got real with myself about what my goal was, what was my purpose in life. And it was in that time, through daily meditation and prayer, that it became clear to me that my purpose was my spiritual development. And I'll just wrap up by saying, when I met my wife before our first date, I said to her, the primary purpose of my life is my spiritual development, and anything that stands in the way of that, I'm going to walk away from. And she had this look on her face, and I said, I know that's probably not the sexiest thing you've ever heard. And she said, actually, it's about the sexiest thing I've ever heard. Thank you.